10, 9, ignition sequence.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
1, 0, and liftoff.
Mission complete, Houston. After serving the world for over 30 years, the space shuttle's earned its place in history and it's come to a final stop.
Europe's first global navigation satellite system is approaching a new milestone. The launch of 2 more satellites marks the final activities of the in-orbit validation phase, proof that Galileo is becoming a reality. In October last year, Galileo made history when its first pair of operational satellites were sent into orbit by the first Russian Soyuz rocket ever launched from Europe's spaceport in French Guiana.
The launch campaign is going very well, very smoothly. The reason is because the second one, we are taking all the experience of last year. We have improving activities and procedures. And also to be noted that this is a third campaign for Soyuz in French Guiana. And therefore, so the interface with the launcher, with the RNS pass, are extremely smooth, and we have a very well-oiled machine.
Navigation satellites transmit a time signal to receivers, such as those in a car. And by comparing the time signal in space with the time on the receiver, the distance to the satellite can be calculated to work out the receiver's position. New technologies have been developed for Galileo, and it contains the most accurate atomic clock ever flown in space, losing only 1 second in 3 million years. Essential when precision timing also plays a role in many applications, from transportation and financial transactions to the control of power stations and mobile phones. The in-orbit validation phase aims to qualify the Galileo system. When complete, it will consist of 30 satellites and remote ground stations around the world that will command and monitor the constellation and deliver navigation and timing services to users.
Galileo has been conceived from the beginning as a global system. This is why we have to deploy our ground segment everywhere around the world. And we have ground stations like here in the French Guiana that are very far from Europe, very far from our control centers, but they are necessary to measure the quality of our signals even around these parts of the world.
A joint initiative of the European Union and the European Space Agency, Galileo highlights the peaceful use of satellite navigations. This civilian positioning system will work alongside the American GPS and Russian GLONASS systems that, unlike Galileo, are both controlled by the military. Galileo will be able to position objects down to 1 meter or less, much better than what GPS offers today. Furthermore, it will increase user confidence by reporting any satellite failures within seconds. Also with this launch, unlike previous satellites, a new service is on board to improve safety and emergency rescue operations.
Another important capability of these 2 satellites is that they are flying an additional payload. This payload is called Search and Rescue Payload and is actually used to retransmit the signal coming from boats on airplane in emergency to the rescue control center. And the use of this payload will allow the international organization called COSPAR-SARSAT to improve the capability of their system, in particular to have a faster arrival of the emergency rescue system to the people in danger.
The new Soyuz launch pad is close to the Ariane facilities and, together with the addition of the new Vega small launcher, ensures that Europe has independent access to space and any satellite orbit. New businesses are now set to exploit precision timing and location data, and by providing Europe with its own global satellite navigation system, Galileo is not only securing its own autonomy, it is at the heart of this emerging, promising and exciting area.
All the launcher activities start in the Soyuz launch vehicle integration building, the MIG. The first 3 stages of Soyuz are assembled horizontally, the 4 boosters constituting the first stage. The frigate upper stage has been transferred onto its container from its storage area to the MiG, where it was installed onto its stand in order to undergo autonomous pneumatic and electrical tests. The Galileo satellites arrived in French Guiana at Cayenne's Félix-Éboué Airport on the 7th and the 17th of August. After being transferred to their payload processing facility, the Galileo teams performed a series of mechanical and electrical tests to check the good health of the satellites. All these performed in the utmost cleanliness of the dedicated facilities here at the Guyana Space Center. The next step was the fueling operations on the spacecraft, when the tanks were filled in the S5 pitting. After being integrated onto the dispenser to form the stack, it was transferred to S3B, where it was integrated on two frigates and encapsulated in the fairing to form the upper composite. 4 days before the launch, on the morning of the 8th of October, the first 3 stages of the launch area transferred horizontally to the launch pad. Unlike Ariane, which is assembled vertically, Soyuz is raised to a vertical position only once it had arrived at its final location on the pad. That same evening, the upper composite has been hoisted and integrated on top of Soyuz launcher. All these operations took place thanks to the excellent cooperation between the Russian and the European teams working closely to prepare Soyuz and its passengers Galileo for today's launch.
There are those boosters that we saw there. And the satellites are in the fairing at the top. What's it like in there, Thierry?
Actually, it's quite pleasant and cool. We control all the conditions very carefully inside the fairing. Right now, the satellites are in their flight configuration, and they have been switched to the battery power.
And here at the spaceport, we do have a lot of facilities spanning a pretty vast area, and the entire thing is actually known as the range. 2 key sites, mission control, and this one, launch control. What's happening in here?
Yes, in fact, we have a two-way cooperation between Russians and Europeans for Soyuz, and we have 2 teams working in the launch control. Here we have the COAL, the launch site operations manager, Jean-Claude Carreau, who is responsible of all the ground operations. And his counterpart, it's Dimitri Banov, the launch operation manager for TSSKB ProRes, the COLS. And in parallel of this team, you have another team, which is headed by the CPAP. Mr. Patrick Cartier is the Soyuz production project manager for Arianespace. And his counterpart on the Russian side is Mr. Valery Kapitonov, the Soyuz launch technical manager.
And in Baikonur, the launch control is in several bunkers, isn't it, which are actually underground, about 50 meters from the pad, whereas here in the Guyana Space Center, it's in a building. What, about a kilometre away? So it's a bit different, isn't it?
Yes, you're right. The configuration is a bit different, but I have to say that all the ground means and software are quite the same, and even better here at CAGS, considered more modern than in Baikonur.
So we're coming up to a key milestone in the launch. We call it the Clutch na start. Clutch means key, and key on start is the beginning of the synchronized sequence. There is actually a key in launch control, which we twist. So what's happening?
The launch key is put in place in the control center to begin the Soyuz synchronized automatic sequence, and afterwards the computers on board will run all the final checks before the launch, and they manage an impressive list of operations.
They certainly do, and we have an important mission today. Our passengers will play a vital role in the building of Galileo.
Tonight's launch will add to the 2 satellites launched last year. 4 is the minimum number of satellites needed for navigational fixes, and together they will form a mini constellation and help prove the design of Europe's first fully civilian satellite navigation system. In-orbit validation involves checking the satellites and the supporting ground stations as they are working together as a complete system. And for the first time, Galileo satellites will send signals that will allow positioning on the ground. Once this system is validated in orbit, the next phase can follow, the full deployment of the Galileo constellation. Jointly funded by the European Space Agency and the European Commission, the in-orbit validation stage is an important step forward from Giove A and Giove B, the experimental Galileo satellites launched in 2005 and 2008. They demonstrated new critical technologies. These included the most accurate atomic clocks in space and a signal generator, payloads that Europe had to develop in order to play its new role in satellite navigation. They also investigated the radiation levels at medium Earth orbit, where the constellation will fly. The Giove missions formally ended last summer. Both have made way for these first 4 operational satellites, now consolidating the foundation of the system. Once this validation phase is completed, 26 extra satellites will progressively join them to make a final 30-strong constellation. And as more satellites go into orbit, more ground stations will also be deployed to achieve what is called full operational capability. Users on the ground will then be able to take advantage of a global system that can deliver highly accurate positioning and ensure a continuity of services.
Now you see that white smoke coming out of the vehicle. Well, that's actually liquid oxygen which is evaporating, and to make oxygen liquid we have to store it at remarkably low temperatures. What's the temperature?
The temperature value is minus 183 degrees. This smoke, in fact, is due to the oxygen venting valves, which are opened until the launch to avoid too much pressure on the oxygen tanks.
And you might have noticed when we saw the film earlier that the launcher is actually grey, but if you look further down the launch vehicle in a second, we'll see some pictures, you'll see that it's actually white. Yeah. Why is that? You can see it there, it's white.
Yes, you're right. It became white because of the frost, in fact, which built up on the outside of the liquid oxygen tanks, because they are so cold that the frost has been built up.
We're looking here at the grey mast, the big grey metal mast. It's called the umbilical mast, the KZM. It's connecting the teams on the ground to the satellites, Thierry, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. It's our link. It's housing all the umbilical lines, but as you have heard now, we have received the information that the umbilical lines have been completely disconnected, and the job of command has been sent.
So the lines have been disconnected. We can't actually see them being disconnected because they're inside the mast.
Yes, but the main information is that now we have no longer information coming from the satellites, and
they're now disconnected.
Yes.
And that mast is going to retract just before launch, about 30 seconds or so before launch, so do watch out for that. You'll see that retract, and then the other thing you'll see below it is another mast, the VKM, and that's the lower stage mast.
Yes, but it is fully other kind of mast which is connected to the equipment bay of the Block A, the second stage, and it houses all the electrical links providing communications between ground and the Block A.
As you say, the Block A is the second stage. Now we're coming up to the 1 minute mark. Let's just talk a little bit about the ignition sequence in a second. The range operations manager is getting ready to call out the 1 minute mark.
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute. Top, H0 moins 1 minute.
1 minute to launch. Let's just fly through the ignition sequence here. It's a little bit different from Ariane. We have first a low thrust level, then intermediate, and then full. What's that about?
Yes, exactly. All the engines on the 4 boosters on the core stage will be ignited at the same time, as soon as the launch command will be sent on 20 seconds before the launch. And they initially operate at a low level, and afterwards you will have... we have
there goes the KZM mast.
Yes.
Bang on time.
So everything is nominal until now. And finally, after...
Attention pour le début de la séquence d'allumage de lanceur.
Beginning of the ignition sequence. Right, everybody, we shall let you watch the launch. Best wishes to everyone.
Allumage du triétage. Attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top, décollage.
Well, always spectacular. We're off. Heading out over the Atlantic Ocean. We're burning 5 engines, 1 on the core stage and 4 on the boosters. The boosters, though, are the ones that are doing all the work here because their job is just to haul us against the gravity of the Earth. Tell us about them.
Yeah, the boosters are providing 80% of the thrust right now. There are 4 identical conical shaped boosters strapped to the second stage, and the RD-107A engine is powered by the liquid oxygen and kerosene. That's the same propellant used for the 3 main stages of the Soyuz. And each engine has 4 combustion chambers and nozzles.
We're getting some spectacular images here as we fly through the Earth's atmosphere. We can see there the trace of the propellant.
We are very lucky because we have a daylight launch and we can see it until very high in the sky.
And if we're really lucky, we might get to actually see those boosters falling away in real life. So the launcher is sending us telemetry signals, and here we go, we're getting the booster cutoff. And we can actually see them. Those 4 dots on the screen, there they go, flying away.
The 4 boosters.
Heading back down to Earth. So tell us what we're looking at on the left-hand side of the screen.
Yes, on the left side of the screen you have in fact the predicted trajectory profile, and you have the dot on the curve, which is the actual position of the launch vehicle.
Les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Everything is nominal on board, so good news. And the A stands for the altitude, so we are now at the 68 kilometer, and the V for speed.
And we're now burning the main core stage, or the Block A, and that burns for just under 5 minutes.
Yes, the Block A is...
Propulsion est normale.
Everything is normal. The Block A is a hammerhead shape to accommodate the boosters. It's composed of 2 huge tanks of propellant, LOX and kerosene, and the propulsion is provided by the RD-108A engine. You have as for the boosters, 4 combustion chambers, along with 4 vernier thrusters.
And the fairing we're looking at here at the top of the vehicle, it's got the satellites inside and it's protecting them from the rigors of the launch, isn't it?
Yeah, it protects the satellites from external environment first on ground, once the satellites are encapsulated, and then during flight, protecting them from different fluxes and aerodynamic pressure and heating with dense atmosphere. As soon as the aerothermal flux becomes lower than satellite acceptable value, the fairing is jettisoned.
And of course we are flying through the dense atmosphere of the Earth, which is roughly about 100 kilometers thick, and as we get to the outside of the atmosphere, the friction is reduced and the satellites are able to bear it. So we're now having the predicted images there of the separation of the fairing. We don't need it anymore because we don't have much friction left anymore. Thierry, with the images that we're seeing, we can still see them down here on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. These are images which actually you created right from the start, aren't they? They're simulated images of what is actually happening?
Yes, you know, in fact, I was at the origin of this 3D dimension simulation program, and all the 3D images that you see are simulated ones, but all the movements and positions are based on exact nominal prediction of the launch. So all the parameters are normal. Good news. There is today no correlation with real telemetry coming from the launcher, but one day, perhaps, I hope that we will get it.
That would be good. So what we're looking at here is the second stage, Block A, the third stage with a lattice work connection in the middle, and the satellites there are exposed to space, and we're now getting the prediction of the second stage separation. We're seeing all these milestones happening at the right time, but we get the actual confirmations slightly later, and that's perfectly normal. It takes a little time for the information to get to the range operations manager, and then of course he'll call out the confirmations when he gets them. So what are we looking at here? It's a peculiarity of Soyuz, isn't it, the way the engines are ignited?
Séparation du bloc A.
We'll receive the confirmation of the separation, which is fully nominal. Yes, you're right, with Ariane we separated 1 stage before an ignition. Next, with Soyuz there is a specificity with the third stage ignition. It starts approximately 2 seconds before the previous stage shutdown. And the thrust from the third stage engine at ignition helps to push the second stage away. And the second and third stage, they are linked by a lattice work structure to help evacuate and enable us to ignite the engine before separation.
And that was the structure we could see linking the two stages. And how do we separate them? How does it work?
We use pyrotechnic locks and spring pushers to push the stage away.
So we're now burning the third stage. It burns for about 4.5 minutes. What's our speed and altitude?
Now the altitude is roughly at 175 kilometer and the speed velocity at 4.47 kilometer per second.
And we're looking here at the frigate is the gold section, that's the upper stage, and the satellites attached. This is the 7th launch so far this year from the Guyana Space Centre, and we're preparing 3 more. It's been a busy time.
Ariane 5 sets another record, the 51st successful launch in a row. On the 28th of September, it orbited 2 satellites, Astra 12 for the Luxembourg Berthaud SES and GSAT-10 for the Indian Space Research Organization.
During the 63rd International Astronautical Congress in Naples in October, Arianespace reaffirmed its position as the world's benchmark launch service provider and a partner to Italian space industry. Italy plays an important role in the launch family, as well as building satellites.
Activities at the CSG are scaling up. On the 9th of October, the next Ariane 5 was transferred to the final assembly bidding to launch Eutelsat 21B and Star 1C3 on the 9th of November.
The 4th automated transfer vehicle, otherwise known as Albert Einstein, is undergoing preparations. Europe's cargo ship is due for launch to the International Space Station in April 2013.
Activities for the 4th Soyuz launch from the CSG have started, and this week preparations are taking place on the frigate upper stage to launch the 2nd Pléiades satellite on the 30th of November.
And activities for Vega's 2nd launch under the Welt programme are to start at the end of November, with the transfer of the P-80 first stage to the launch zone. So, our flight path takes us from Kourou out across the Atlantic, across Europe, Russia. Everything's going according to plan. Southeast Asia and down towards Australia, and we're tracking the launcher using ground stations as it flies over. We call this telemetry.
Yes, Soyuz sends in fact data to those ground tracking stations, and it tells us how the flight is progressing in real time by giving many interesting information.
He's saying that everything's going well. Now, the tracking stations are on this flight, Galileo in Kourou. Then we have a boat in the Atlantic called SNA. Then in the Azores we have Santa Maria. The Azores are islands, which are about 100 kilometres off the west coast of Portugal in the middle of the Atlantic. And then we pick up the signal in Toulouse in France at Aussaguel.
Yes.
Then we lose visibility for a little while.
Yes, and then we will have Perth on southwest coast of Australia and 2 additional ground tracking stations, Dongara and Kerguelen, but which will be used by the on-customer side.
So some of our ground stations are used by the launcher team and some by the Galileo team. So what's our speed and altitude? Here we go. Look, we're getting the prediction here of separation of the third stage. No, we've had the announcement there. So we have the confirmation.
We've got the confirmation.
Extinction of the engine and separation. So we're now beginning the next phase of the journey. Now, the gold structure you're looking at there is frigate. It's the upper stage. What's it actually doing?
Yes, in fact, frigate upper stage is preparing the ignition of its main propulsion systems by activating the 55-second attitude control system longitudinal acceleration, which ensures that the propellant will be well positioned on the bottom of the tanks.
So this ensures the proper ignition, and it's a little bit like, I suppose, if you put your foot on the accelerator in the car and you go back into the seat. Here we are now getting frigate's main engine first ignition burn. It burns for over 13 minutes. And frigate's job is to deliver the satellites to their separation orbit, and that'll take about 3 hours and 40 minutes. Thierry, it's a vehicle in its own right, isn't it? It was actually designed as an interplanetary space probe.
Yes, you're right. And Paola Voshkin created many interplanetary probes in the past, and the Fregatable stage follows all these design traditions. This is a fully autonomous stage which flew for the first time in 2000, and it can be restarted multiple times, in fact 20 times. And it has its own OBC, onboard computer, with guidance, navigation and control systems, as well as tracking and telemetry systems. Now we are at the speed of 7.4 km per second and an altitude of 163 km. So far, all the parameters are normal.
Galileo is a European endeavour, and it's the first concrete project between ESA and the European Commission.
We launch now 2 more satellites of the Galileo constellation. So today, we will have 4 satellites, and we will continue. Next year, we will launch 4 satellites every 6 months. By end of 2014, early 2015, we will have around 18 to 24 satellites of the Galileo constellation. And we will be able to start the services offered by this great European project. These services will be useful for transportation, fishing, agriculture, civil protection, public health. This is why it is so important to go forward. This is why it is necessary to support this great project. We have planned in the next financial perspectives to have a specific budget, but we are also saving a lot of money, and if we are able to stick to this timing, we will save more money. Before end of 2020, we will have the final constellation, so it will be a big European dream that will become a great reality and will help all citizens.
So an important project for all of us, and here we're looking at the Galileo team in mission control. Left-hand side of the screen is giving us information on our mission. Talk us through where we are now, Thierry.
Yes, in fact, so we have an altitude of 150 km and a speed of 7.7 km per second. So far, all parameters are normal. You can see on the bottom left this through a 3-dimension simulation, which shows that the burning is in progress. And on the top, on the left side, you can see the trajectory profile, which is, I recall it, a predicted trajectory profile with a dot.
Now, the French space agency CNES has been very involved in the development of satellite navigation in Europe.
From the very start, the IGNOS program and Galileo have been of extreme importance to France. Going back to the 90s, CNES was at the origin of the European EGNOS system and of the Galileo architecture. It was in Toulouse that CNES set up the IGNOS Performance Evaluation Center. And CNES also made a major contribution to the design of the navigation signals and messages. CNES did the patents and also the frequencies with the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union. All that was then transferred to ESA and then the European Union. Moreover, it was France and the UK that gave the European Union the Galileo Security Monitoring Center. France, which together the US, Russia and Canada, was one of the founding members of COSPAR-SARSAT, the search and rescue system, persuaded the European Union to connect the Galileo satellites to COSPAR-SARSAT, thus allowing Galileo to contribute to the saving of 30,000 human lives in 30 years. At the conclusion, the launch of these 2 additional satellites proved that Galileo is becoming a tangible reality, and one of which all European citizens can be proud.
So as we said, this is the third launch of a Soyuz from the Guyana Space Center, and there are several different configurations of the Soyuz launchers. A bit like a car. If you're a BMW owner, then you'll know about the 3 Series, the 4 Series, the 5 Series. And here at CSG, we're effectively using the Soyuz 2 series.
Interesting image, yes. There are 2 versions of that. The Soyuz STA with a Frigate M upper stage and the Soyuz STB with a Frigate MT upper stage that we are using today. They are similar to the ones used in Baikonur, which are called the Soyuz 21A and Soyuz 21B, but we have adapted them slightly for the CSG environment. And the main adaptations is the KISO safety kit implementation and telemetry system.
So, same vehicle on a new pad.
The Soyuz ST launch vehicle has been developed and is being produced at the Samara Space Center, one of the main participants of the Soyuz at Guyana Space Center project. The Soyuz ST carrier has been chosen to implement the project. Launch vehicles of the Soyuz family are descendants of the famous Semyorka, which 50 years ago performed the first manned flight with cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin on board. Carriers of Soyuz family have optimum design, fine-tuned manufacturing technique, highly qualified and professional employees, an efficient quality control system applicable to each phase of manufacturing and assembly. The Soyuz ST, produced at the Samara Space Center, is a Soyuz 2 derivative designed for launches from French Guyana. Soyuz 2's stability, maneuverability, highly accurate payload injection, and safety maintenance are the reasons why Soyuz 2 has been chosen as a prototype for the Soyuz ST. To perform launches from a new launching site, the Soyuz ST has been modified to meet European safety requirements concerning the telemetry system and operational conditions. New hardware that enables the carrier engines to be cut off from the ground has also been added. In case of emergency, the engines can be cut off manually. And the large size fairing of the ST type, which conforms to international standards, will increase the accommodation area under it. Soyuz ST is delivered from Samara to St. Petersburg in blocks by rail, followed by transportation by sea to French Guyana. Each block is covered and placed into a separate transport container. Some special hermetically sealed containers have been produced to transport the blocks to the equatorial launch site. These containers are to be mounted on platforms on the train and transported 1,500 kilometers to St. Petersburg. And from there, the cargo is taken by sea to French Guyana aboard the ships Colibri and Toucan. Launches from French Guyana will make Soyuz the first carrier in the world that is able to launch from 3 countries: Plesetsk in Russia, Baikonur in Kazakhstan, and Kourou in Guyana.
So we're now flying over Europe, over the tracking station in Toulouse, Orsagel in Toulouse, acquiring the signal there. And if you look at the curve on the left-hand side of the screen, as you can see before, we were using our power to get away from the Earth, and now we're really using it to go higher.
Yes, exactly. As you can see, we are climbing. The dot white on the left shows that it follows carefully trajectory. With a spin which is Relatively constant, I would say, 8.8 kilometers per second.
Which is nearly 9 kilometers a second, quite remarkable. Frigate is a very clever piece of kit. Let's find out more about it.
Frigate is the upper stage beneath the fairing of the Soyuz launcher that was developed with NPO Lawishkin back in 1999-2000 for ESA's cluster launch.
Donc c'est un étage qui est extrêmement intéressant.
It is extremely lightweight and fully autonomous,
de son propre moteur,
thanks to its own engine and guidance system. It can be used as an additional stage on the Soyuz launcher.
Cet étage présente la
It functions with a cerebral propellants and can be reignited around 20 times. Thanks to Fregate's reignitability, it can reach a range of different orbits. Some synchronous orbits for Earth observation missions, optical or radar observations, geostationary missions with an ejection point at 36,000 kilometers, with payload injection conditions identical to those of Ariane 5. It also allows for medium and high orbit missions, such as the launch of the Galileo constellation. Most frigate missions require 2 ignitions. It can, however, be reignited up to 20 times, which means that relatively complex missions are possible, with exchanges of orbital plane or orbit altitude. This specific feature was used for the Pleiades ELISA SSOT mission in 2011, where 5 different satellites were placed on 2 different orbits thanks to a total of 4 firings of the main engine. Frigate is perfect for in-space business as it offers GTO up to 3.1 tons, SSO launches, or the launch of constellations such as Galileo or Global Star.
So it's a very important vehicle in its own right. And look, we're now travelling at over 9 kilometres a second. And as I said earlier, Thierry, these speeds to me are really quite remarkable. 9 kilometres per second. So there's everybody, cool, calm and collected in mission control, the guests watching there. So Frigate is the gold section, and it's a circular shape, isn't it? What's it made of?
Yeah, it's made of aluminum, and in fact the MLI that you see, all the parameters are nominal. So the gold structure that you see is in fact the representation of the MLI that is protecting the frigate. And now we are reaching the frigate cutoff.
The frigate's getting ready to cut off its engine. There we have the image there of it cutting off its engine, the synthesized images. And it's going into what we now call the ballistic phase, and that lasts 3 hours and 12 minutes. Ballistic means without propulsion, so we're effectively travelling high enough and fast enough to cruise without the engine. We're already in orbit. What's happening now, Thierry?
Well, now, during this ballistic phase, we'll have 12 minutes of orientation maneuver. We'll have 12 minutes of orientation maneuver to point frigate and the satellites to the correct attitude before beginning the barbecue phase. And barbecue phase, at the end of this barbecue phase, we will have 13 minutes of orientation maneuver to prepare the second boost.
And the barbecue phase, there we have the confirmation of the engine cutoff. The barbecue phase is a little bit like roasting on a spit.
Yes, right. In fact, it allows to ensure like this the homogeneity of thermal conditions around the satellites, and it keeps the temperature even.
So we're flying over Eastern Europe. We will start to lose the telemetry signal from the launcher shortly. We're waiting for Mr. Le Gall now to come up and tell us what's going to happen next. We will be taking a break in our programming and coming back to you later, but let's listen to Mr. Le Gall.
Well, as you have just seen, the first part of the mission went smoothly. The Soyuz tri-stage worked perfectly. After this, we had separation of the upper part of the launcher, in other words, the frigate stage, and both of the Galileo satellites. After that, as you've seen, we had the first burn of frigate, and we're now just over the Baltic Sea, after which we'll come down over Asia. We'll be going quite close to Baikonur, so we'll probably be able to wave as we go by. Then over Indonesia, the Indian Ocean, and in a little more than 3 hours, frigate and the two satellites will be above the south of Australia, where there'll be a second ignition of frigate, which will be shorter than the first, and separation of the spacecraft. So that's what I can tell you for the time being. And for those people who are following the video transmission, stay with us for the end of the mission in a little over 3 hours. Thank you.
So, as Jean-Yves Le Gall said, we'll be coming back to you at 21:22 GMT, that's 23:22 Central European Time, and 6:22 here in French Guiana. So let me just repeat that, 9:22 GMT. And we'll be joining our satellites 28 minutes before frigate's second burn. Frigate will be getting ready at that point to switch on its engines. So we'll have plenty of time to talk more about our mission, the Galileo constellation, and joining us to do that will be Marco Falconi, who's from the European Space Agency. He'll be coming into the commentary box to join Thierry and I. In the meantime, let's take a look back at the fantastic launch. It was spectacular. We're very lucky to have a beautiful sunny day.
Once more.
And again. A very wonderful launch, actually, because we were expecting Soyuz to hide behind the clouds, but no, we actually saw the boosters separate in real time, which was really quite spectacular. So our satellites, our in-orbit validation Galileo satellites, FM3 and FM4, are now on their journey, en route to their injection orbit. We'll see you again in just over 3 hours. Marco, tell us a little bit about what's going to happen to the satellites once we've separated them.
Once we will have separated them, we will go through the launch and early orbit phase that we described previously. And then this will last around 1 week. Then the control center in Toulouse will hand over on around 17-19 of October the satellites to the control center. And then the satellites will start their drift to the ultimate position in their orbital slots. Once we have done that, this will take some time with a number of maneuvers that will be done together with our thrusters on board. And then we will start the commissioning of a platform to check that all units on board are healthy. Following that, we go through a period around 20 of November and end of November, where we switch on the navigation payload. The clocks first. Here we are. We're in automatic sequence.
And we have separation.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
We have separation of the satellites.
Of the separation. Congratulations.
Congratulations to everybody. Congratulations to all the teams. Everyone's worked incredibly hard to bring us to this point. There we have the Galileo teams, very happy faces. It's been the culmination of many months for some, years for others. This is a very, very important moment. So let's just talk a little bit about what's happening right now, Thierry, because actually this is well, it's the end of the journey, if you like, for Soyuz, the beginning of the journey for the satellites, but for Frigate, it's not quite over, is it?
Yes, exactly. In fact, Frigate will perform some collision avoidance activities and orientations, and we will have some maneuvers to be performed just before the third boost, which will occur, in fact, 37 minutes after separation. It will last 55 seconds, and this third boost will be performed with the attitude control system thrusters. And we will have afterwards a ballistic phase of around 4 hours and 36 minutes. And
we have received, we have received a telemetry signal from the satellite.
Ah, very good.
I see the team joyful.
News.
Excellent news.
This is the sign that I think the LEOP Center in Toulouse has received the signal from the satellites, so they have caught the babies.
So very good. We received the information. We received information from Frigate, and we received confirmation from the satellites part, so excellent.
So that's great news. What this means is we have received a signal from the satellites, and they are healthy. And what a beautiful launch it was. Marco had the pleasure of watching it in real life. Thierry and I watched it on the screens, as you did. And we were very lucky because it was a daytime launch. How does it feel to be in there, guys?
It's a great day.
Yes, it's a really great moment.
I can tell you it's a great day for all of us. We have been working many years to achieve all of this. Many efforts, many hours of work from all of us. And now we have 4 birds in space. This is really a good job for the whole project team.
So this means as well that it is a big job, because it means that we're all going to be able to start testing. You'll be able to start testing the birds, and service providers will be able to start testing their equipment. So we are now en route to a full Galileo constellation. There are the teams.
You know, daylight launches of Soyuz are really specific and particular, because we have the possibility to see the boosters separation, and it's a really great moment.
Particularly exciting to watch a daytime launch. And then we have the Galileo people there, very, very happy with the launch. It's been a clockwork. It's been a perfect launch, hasn't it? From start to finish. Soyuz has done a great job. And here now is Mr. Jean-Yves Le Gall.
As you've just seen, we've reached the end of an almost 4-hour mission, and this third launch of Soyuz from CSG is a success. It has put into orbit 2 further satellites of the Galileo constellation, and that's something that we can all be very happy with. It should be noted that this new success comes pretty much 1 year after the first launch of Soyuz from the CSG, and it confirms the exemplary nature of the cooperation we enjoy with Russia. Indeed, in a little under 1 year, we will have had 3 perfect launches of Soyuz from CSG. And these have made it possible to demonstrate the operational effectiveness of our new launch system. It also confirms that we took the right and relevant decision in going for a launcher family. Today's success is a success for Europe. Europe has decided to gain its own satellite navigation system, the Galileo constellation, and the economic and social advantages of this will serve all of our citizens. It might seem an obvious thing to say, but I see that this is very felicitous that it's occurred today, the very day when the European Union won the Nobel Peace Prize. I would therefore like to thank the European Commission, the European Space Agency, and all of their member states for having decided to go ahead with the development of Galileo, and obviously for having asked us to launch all 26 satellites of the constellation. With last year's launch and the launch of today, we have put into orbit the first 4 spacecraft, and as of next year we will be embarking upon the launch of the remaining 22. We will have 5 more Soyuz launches and 3 Ariane 5 launches, and this will make Galileo our most important customer. I would also like to thank all of those who in Russia, Europe and in French Guiana have made it possible for us to succeed in this launch of this evening. And thanks particularly to our operational team who just, in fact, under 2 weeks after the launch of Ariane 5 have contributed to the success of Soyuz, and to our friends from NPO Lvochkin, who are responsible for the production and implementation of Fregat. Let me say that they were celebrating their 75th anniversary. I'd also like now to thank all of those who have been following this launch, particularly in Brussels, where we had Mr. Antonio Tajani, Vice President of the European Commission, our friend Paul Weissenberg, who's in charge of the program. And in Paris, there was Jean-Jacques Dordain, the Director General of the European Space Agency, and here in French Guiana, Yannick Descata, who is President of the CNES. So that is what I wanted to say to you at the end of this mission. And I'd now like to hand over to ESA, where we'll hear from Mr. Didier Fèvre, and then the Commission, Mr. Paul Flamand, and, of course, on behalf of CNES, Mr. Descartes will then take the floor. Thank you.
Merci Jean-Yves.
Thank you, Jean-Yves. Dear friends, I'm really delighted to be here in Kourou, where we've had this successful launch of Galileo with Soyuz. So I'd like to thank Arianespace and our Russian friends for having contributed to this tremendous success. I feel quite emotional, but it's really a very special day for me. I'd also like to say something to our friends in French Guiana and the CSG. 2 weeks ago, Ariane 5 went up. We're aware of what had to be done to reconfigure the range in just 2 weeks, and that's really important for us. We've got a huge workload ahead of us, and to see that the range in just 2 weeks, that everything can be done to reconfigure things so that we can shift from an Ariane launch to a Soyuz launch really is encouraging. So many thanks to everybody at the CSG who's done that, people at the CNES who provided support throughout the campaign and helped us in preparing the successful launch of today. In this room, there are a number of industrial representatives, and industry has worked really hard. We tend to refer to the primes, thanks to Astrium, Thales Alenia as well, worked really well here. The same team as we had for the first launch, and they've worked just as well. And it's been even simpler because we were familiar with the procedures this time around. But there are also a number of other people from industry who have made contributions to some of the most significant parts of the spacecraft, in other words, the payload. The first two IOV satellites are working very well, and we're very confident as to the future. We've got a big future ahead of us. We've got what we have in orbit. Acquisition's been confirmed. We'll soon have the deployment of the solar panels. And then for the future, we've got another 22 spacecraft to go up, 5 on Soyuz, 3 on 5 Soyuz launches, 3 Ariane launches. So we've got a lot ahead of us, and we will certainly stick with you. So, Jean-Yves, you'll get fed up seeing us here. And I can say the same to everyone else at the CSG. But anyhow, we're preparing for the future, and I think we can now concentrate on celebrating this event. You'll be hearing more from us, and you'll be hearing more about Galileo. We will be back. Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Vice President of the European Commission, Antonio Tajani, I would like to say that we, like you, have 2 reasons to be proud today. First of all, the success of the first and the second and the last launch of the development phase of Galileo. That's proof of the success of the implementation of this tremendous project. And I'd like to thank all of those who've contributed to this positive result, particularly industry, the industries that manufacture the satellites. And many thanks also to Arianespace for the launch. I'd also like to thank the European Space Agency, without which Galileo would never have seen the light of day. the member states who are still involved in the follow-up to the program. I'd also like to thank the European GNSS Agency, which provides tremendous and constant support to the Commission. Congratulations to all of them, and I'd like to say that I place full trust in the future of the program, because it's not over. As of tomorrow, we will be getting down to work. We have the 4 spacecraft that are now in orbit around the Earth, and thanks to them, it's going to be possible to validate the operation of the system and to move on to the next phase, in other words, building the entire infrastructure. We have now to manufacture all of the other satellites to make sure they can be launched, to complete the ground centers and stations, and actively prepare the greatest possible use of the services to be made by the corporate world, the public at large, and in all activities. We will have to show that we're present in 2014 when it comes to providing the first services. That is a goal within our sights, and I can say that we will meet again in the spring of 2013 for the next launch of 2 more Galileo spacecraft. There's another reason for us to be so happy today. It's already been referred to. The Nobel Peace Prize today went to the European Union on the 2nd of October. The 12th of October 2012 will remain a very significant date for Europe for many reasons. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, good evening. I'm sure I don't need to say how happy we are. This is the 3rd success of a Soyuz launcher from French Guiana. It was a perfect launch, and there are 4 reasons why I'm so happy about it. First of all, it's a further collective success that comes at the end of an exceptional human adventure. The installation of the mythical launcher Soyuz here in French Guiana at the European spaceport. That is a success, which is the upshot of tremendous competence, real devotion, and hard and rigorous work on the part of many men and women from Europe and Russia for many, many years. And I'd like to say how much I want to congratulate them and thank them. I'd like to thank all of the teams from CNES, the Launcher Directorate, the CSG, ESA, Arianespace, the Russian agency Roscosmos, and all of the European and Russian industries involved in developing the launch pad, the launcher, and the launch operations. Let me say, well done, and thank you. Secondly, we have just put into orbit 2 Galileo satellites, 2 more Galileo satellites, and that goes to show that the larger European program Galileo is a reality. The constellation is growing. I think that all citizens of Europe can be extremely proud of this. CNES is proud that it proposed the architecture of the Galileo system, filing the frequencies with the International Telecommunication Union. It also contributed to the design of the navigation signals and messages, and above all, it transferred all of this to ESA and the European Commission. I would like to congratulate and thank the European Commission and ESA for the Galileo program. It's an exceptional program for Europe, and I'd like to thank them for having placed their trust in us for the launch. And obviously, my congratulations and thanks also go to industry, all of the industry involved in Galileo. That means mainly Astrium and Thales Alenia Space. Thirdly, I'd also like to thank the CNES and ESOC, the ESA center teams, who from Toulouse have been dealing with what happens after the orbiting of the Galileo satellites. Contact has now been established, so they will be positioning them and making sure that they are in an accurate orbit. Fourthly, this is a point that's already been made, but I would like to say it once again, today's launch is a veritable performance on the part of the Guiana Space Center. It's the second launch in just 2 weeks, and I'd like to acknowledge this. It's been made possible thanks to the people here working at the CSG, CNES, ESA, Arianespace, all of the industries involved here at the range, and I'd like to thank them very much as well as congratulate them. So let me say that I welcome the progress that's been made in the Galileo program. It's soon to be operational, and similar to Ariane or GMES, it shows how, more than ever in the past, space is a symbol of a successful Europe and European identity. And now let us celebrate. Well, you know that we're planning 10 launches in total this year. And that'll be quite a remarkable feat for us here at the CSG. Today is the 12th of October. The next launch is exactly 4 weeks from now. There'll be an Ariane 5 launching 2 satellites. One is a telecom satellite for Eutelsat, and it arrived a few days ago, and the other is for Brazil, Star 1 C3, and that arrived today. So there are 2 satellites that have gone up into space and 2 that have just arrived here. And they will be going up in 4 weeks from now. So we'll see you a month from now, and I'm sure that'll be another success. Thank you.
So, busy times here at Europe's spaceport on the edge of the Amazon rainforest here at the Guyana Space Center. We've launched and orbited 2 satellites tonight. The second 2 of the IOV Galileo constellation. So we're now well on our way to testing that constellation and moving towards a full constellation for Europe. An important day for all Europeans. We're going to take a look again in a second at the replay of that launch. It was a clockwork launch and everything went absolutely according to plan. We launched just over 4 hours ago and it took Soyuz and Frigate just over 4 hours to deliver the satellites perfectly to their orbit. And here it is. So it's mission accomplished once again for Arianespace. Now we have 4 IOV Galileo satellites in space.
Congratulations to all our colleagues, to the European and Russian side, and in particular to the Galileo teams. I'm looking forward to working with you on the next FOC launch.
Yeah, from my side, congratulations to the European satellite industry for this major achievement. And our thanks to Arianespace, because you did another time an excellent job.
Thanks, Marco.
And the best of luck to all the teams with the next phase of your operations. Thanks for joining us here live at the Guyana Space Centre. From all of us, Thierry Fayem, Marco Falcone, and me, Katie Haswell.
Goodbye.
Go IOV.
Erfolgreicher Start. Vom Weltraumbahnhof Kourou sind 2 weitere Satelliten für das europäische Navigationssystem Galileo ins All abgehoben. Mit nun 4 Satelliten startet die Testphase für das System. Es soll noch genauere Daten liefern als das amerikanische System GPS. Allerdings sind die Kosten schon jetzt von 3,4 auf knapp 5 Milliarden Euro gestiegen.
Die Nerven beim Stratos-Team sind angespannt. Felix Baumgartner will ihn unbedingt wagen, den Sprung aus einer Höhe von 36 Kilometern, als erster Mensch der Welt. Doch bisher macht ihm das Wetter in New Mexico einen Strich durch die Rechnung. 2-mal musste der Extremsportler kurz vor dem Start abbrechen. Das setzt ihm und dem Team ganz schön zu. Er war natürlich sehr enttäuscht, dass wir nicht fliegen konnten, genauso wie wir alle. Aber er ist sehr professionell. Und sobald wir wussten, dass die Mission abgebrochen wird, haben wir ihm geraten, sich für 24 bis 48 Stunden ganz zurückzuziehen, um die Situation zu verarbeiten. Für den legendären Sprung, bei dem Baumgartner im freien Fall die Schallmauer durchbrechen will, ist alles bestens vorbereitet. Umso ärgerlicher, dass ausgerechnet das Wetter den Weltrekordversuch bisher verhinderte. Viel zu windig war es in den vergangenen Tagen hier in Nevada, doch das soll sich jetzt endlich ändern. Wir rechnen damit, dass es Sonntag oder Montag klappt. Das sind die 2 Tage, die wir anpeilen. Das Wetter soll sich dann deutlich verbessern. Bis Sonntag, wenn es also endlich losgehen soll, können Baumgartner und sein Team sich die Zeit ja auch noch in den diversen skurrilen Alien-Ausstellungen in Roswell vertreiben.
Viel Glück, Felix, heißt es auf der Werbetafel hinter mir ganz. Roswell drückt also nach wie vor Felix Baumgartner die Daumen und es sieht gut aus für Sonntag. Das hat der Meteorologe des Projekts noch einmal bestätigt. Zwischen 6:45 Uhr und 11 Uhr am Sonntagmorgen, Ortszeit hier in New Mexico, sollte der Launch gelingen. Also hoffen wir mal, dass keine störende Wetterfront dazwischen kommt und Felix Baumgartner endlich am Sonntag seine 4 Rekorde aufstellen kann.
Nation. We'll take you there, just ahead.
Roger, roll, Endeavour.
Houston is now controlled.
It is heyday. The Space Shuttle Endeavour would soar into space in dizzying speed. Its final journey, though, is now underway at a top speed of 3 kilometers an hour. NASA's retired spacecraft is moving from Los Angeles International Airport to the California Science Center, a 20-kilometer trip that is expected to take 2 days. John Zarella is there with more on the final journey. John?
Hey, Bonita, so imagine you've been living under a rock here in Los Angeles, and you wake up this morning and you look out your window and there's this winged spacecraft kind of going down the street. You know, that might be a cause to be a little bit disconcerted if that happens. So, but that's exactly what's happening here this morning in Los Angeles. A couple of hours ago, the shuttle Endeavour on the back of a transporter being towed literally down outside of the airport, Los Angeles International Airport, and making several turns. And we are waiting for it to arrive now here at another staging area where it's actually going to sit for about 9 hours while they reconfigure it from the one transporter it's on now to a different transporter. And, you know, as you mentioned, it's probably the slowest trip and the shortest trip that Endeavour has ever made. Flew 25 times in space, 123 million miles flown over the course of a quarter of a century of flight. It was the youngest of the space shuttle orbiters that flew, and you know, it was in fact built to replace the Challenger, which exploded back in 1986 on January 28th. So Endeavour would never have been built had it not been for the Challenger accident. But today, a great day, and again tomorrow. Now, police are telling people, look, we'd prefer if you stayed off the streets today, although there are lots of folks lining the streets already, and that tomorrow is the big day here to celebrate, where they're going to be at the Old Forum, then over at a local shopping mall. There'll be performances and celebrations and bleachers set up for people to sit on in those locations to watch as Endeavour comes by there and stops at those locations for these ceremonies. Today, again, a lot of reconfiguring, and you know, at the end of today, late tonight, they're actually going to hook it up to a Toyota pickup truck, a Tundra, and haul it using the Tundra because it's lighter across a bridge that goes over the 405 freeway here in Los Angeles. And, you know, we talked to the Toyota people and said, so you're going to use that video for a commercial? And they said, well, maybe. What do you think, Bonita? Don't you think that's a once-in-a-lifetime piece of video? Who will ever get that? You think they're not going to use that for a commercial? It'll be in the Super Bowl, we're convinced.
I know. I could just say, maybe my eye. Come on. You know they're going to use it in a commercial. Seriously.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yep.
I mean, John, thank you very much for that. That'll certainly be a sight that I think everyone's going to take photographs off. The love affair with the spacecraft in America continues. John Zarella there in a very, very early L.A. morning. Thank you so much. Well, so what's the weather like in L.A. right now? Meteorologist Karen McGinnis is at the World Weather Center with details on that. Karen.
Yeah, and it does look like tomorrow will be the better weather day as people gather around to watch the final journey of Endeavour. Going to be fascinating there. Area of low pressure moves across Southern California, moves towards the east, taking with it some of the cloud cover. So today, a little bit more cloudy, but I think overall you're not in bad shape. Just a few isolated showers if you're going to watch that roughly 20-kilometer route, or about 12 miles, moving very, very slowly, so lots of people can get lots of pictures. This is the route we're showing you along Google Earth. It'd be interesting to see how it makes some of those sharper curves. There you can see just kind of a 90-degree angle there that it's going to have to make. So they're saying that the crowds are going to be fairly large. Endeavour was built to replace the Challenger, which exploded when it went into orbit. And they're calling this Mission 26. Anyway, for the afternoon, partly sunny skies, maybe a few isolated showers, only about a 20% chance, and that's just about it. For tomorrow, should be gorgeous with temperatures hovering around 22 to 25 degrees.
It is resting in a Los Angeles parking lot at Westchester Shopping Center right now, on its way to its new home at the California Science Center. Now, the trip by road from the airport to the museum is expected to take 2 days and will require some tricky maneuvering. We'll be checking in on Endeavour's final journey throughout the day as it sits there in Los Angeles. We are live in Los Angeles following that journey next. Live pictures coming to you now from California. Look at that, as it's just coming up to 7:45 in the morning there in Los Angeles. The space shuttle Endeavour, you can see sitting there, is actually sitting in the parking lot of a shopping center. And you can see plenty of people there gathered around to see it. Now, the reason it's there, having been moved to California earlier in the week, is that it's being maneuvered slowly over the next 2 days just to go from Los Angeles International Airport to the California Science Center. But it is a long 19 kilometers getting there. CNN's John Zarella is following the progress. He joins us now from Los Angeles. Maybe I'm mistaken. Is that the airport or is that the shopping center?
This is the shopping center. They've actually moved about 1.5 miles since they left the airport first thing this morning. And they really, Fionnuala, they had 9 hours to kill because they wanted to move it from the airport before rush hour in Los Angeles and get it to a staging area, a holding area. And then they don't want to move it again until after rush hour and after they take down some power lines that are going to be still along the route that they have to travel. So they have to do that yet. And then they're reconfiguring the base of it in order to, it'll be able to make turns actually over curbs and over medians. So they're going to do some other things while they're here sitting for 9 hours. But it's a great opportunity for all these people to come out now, and we're starting to see hundreds of people from the Los Angeles area. And Demir, you can show them all these people, the crowds we've got here, coming out to actually get a look. There's a barricade up that people can only get so far close to the shuttle, but it's as close as anybody's ever gotten to a space shuttle other than the people that work on them, other than the people that fly in them. So it has been a tremendous opportunity. And, you know, Endeavour flew 25 flights, 123 million miles. This is going to be the shortest and slowest mission journey it's ever been on, and they call this Mission 26 is what they've dubbed it. But by and large, this may be one of the most fascinating journeys, if not the most fascinating journey that any space shuttle has ever taken. Fionnuala?
Because they're going to have to cut down, if they haven't already, cut down trees.
Yeah. Yes, and in fact, that is exactly right. They did cut down about 250 trees, and I talked to the head of the California Science Center just a little while ago about just how difficult negotiating the turns and the clearances is going to be, particularly tomorrow.
There are some places where inches on either side, and that's because we really, we made every effort to disrupt as little as possible. And there are places where we're maneuvering. This equipment is incredibly maneuverable, and that's part of why we chose it. So we're able to go back and forth, crabbing left and right and turning at angles to get through things. And you'll see tomorrow afternoon, you'll see some areas where we're really fine maneuvering in inches, and we're going to go extremely slowly through there because we've got trees inches on either side of everything, but we've done everything we can to save most of the mature trees on the route.
And that really is the fact of the matter is, Fanula, on either side of the vehicle tomorrow, there will be places where they only have a couple of inches of clearance on either side. So they know they've got to be really, really careful not to hit anything. But they're confident. And again, it took them 18 months to go through and put this whole plan together.
You know, I didn't think, John, that I could see anything more surreal than a space shuttle sitting in a shopping center car park. So I can only imagine what it's going to be looking like tomorrow as it navigates the streets of Los Angeles. But I wonder if you have any thoughts or, you know, perhaps even emotions about seeing something that you have covered for many years, up in watching it over the years, and what it means to you to have to cover it today as you see it making its final journey.
You know, and I was talking to someone about it. I've seen them lift off. I've seen them land. I've been inside Endeavour. I sat in the cockpit inside that spacecraft. And, you know, I think to me one of the most poignant things about this, and I said this earlier to someone, was Endeavour was built to replace Challenger, which exploded in 1986. And I was there when that happened. And, of course, the first teacher in space, Krista McAuliffe, died on that 1986 explosion. Endeavour would never have been built if not for the Challenger accident. And her backup, Krista McAuliffe's backup, a woman by the name of Barbara Morgan, finally flew into space. And which vehicle did she fly on? Endeavour. To me, that's kind of the most poignant thing about all this, and, you know, the fact that you have put a closure to it, and that an educator finally flew in space when Barbara Morgan flew, and that all of these shuttles are going to museums and science centers like this one is going to, places of learning and education for generations of children to come. And I think that, you know, that they are going to be great ambassadors for the space program for many, many years to come, these vehicles.
All right, great. John Zarella, thank you very much. I can only imagine what it's like there on the ground watching it up close and personal, because the picture of it is extremely striking. John Zarella there in LA, thank you. Of course, we'll be following this story. We're going to continue following this story right now, because we often talk about the weather conditions when it comes to a space shuttle launch. But we need to bring in our meteorologist, Karen McGuinness, joining us now from the International Weather Centre. Why? Because we need to know what the weather is going to be like for the next 2 days as this shuttle navigates, and why its way to the Science Museum, and why it's so important, Karen.
Exactly, and very spectacular, and CNN covered all of the missions from the very beginning, and now we're watching the end as the space shuttle process is now ended. But take a look at what's happening here for the folks who are going to line many of the streets in the neighborhoods that this is going through. Well, there's an area of low pressure that's situated just across southern California. That's going to be trekking towards the east. As it does and pulls away, it takes with it a lot of that moisture already beginning to wring out quite a bit in Southern California. Only about a 20% chance of an isolated shower, very, very isolated. But you see those beautiful pictures there, and it looks just spectacular. Well, the route is about 12 miles. That's about 30 kilometers. And we're looking at it on some of those streets. They said it's going to be a little tricky. They'll have inches just to spare. And as we heard John Zarella mention, they're taking out some light poles. They're taking out, and there you can see kind of the route that it's going to be taking. They've taken out hundreds of trees. They say they will replant those, but it's hard to imagine it making that 90-degree turn, Fanula, and making its way to its historic and last position on Mission 26.
All right, we'll be getting to see how it makes that 90-degree turn over the next couple of days. Karen McGuinness, thank you very much. Now, a quick check of the headlines as we leave you with these wonderful shots from California as the space shuttle Endeavour sits in the parking lot of a shopping mall. Who'd have thought of that?
A terrific opportunity. You know, 123 million miles Endeavour flew in its lifetime. This is clearly the shortest road trip it's ever made, and the slowest road trip, about 2 miles an hour. And again here, a stop while they reconfigure some things, and they wanted to wait till rush hour traffic cleared at the airport here, so they moved it very early this morning from LAX to this point. So they're just kind of chilling out here until they start moving again a little later this afternoon. Hala?
Yeah, and I can see people can get quite close to it as well. I mean, how close can you get? I imagine you can't sort of, can you touch it? What can you do?
No, it was just literally where I was standing was about as close as you can get to it. But let me tell you, that's about, unless you're flying it and you're an astronaut or you're working on it when they were flying, this is about as close as I've seen anybody get to the orbiters. So these folks here in LA are getting one heck of a treat. And, you know, I've seen them fly, I've seen them land, but I never thought I'd see one going down the streets of, you know, of Los Angeles. It's quite a sight.
Exciting. John Zarella in LA, thanks very much. Where it's raining, as we heard from John. Jenny Harrison has more on the shuttle's progress, too. And the weather, of course, we saw that it was kind of a dreary day there in LA.
I know, quite unlucky really when you think about it, because we have so much nice sunshine out there across the southwest, but there's an area of low pressure which is just sitting there. You can see all these clouds spinning away from it. So that is what's been bringing some very scattered showers. As I say, fairly unlucky, really. You can see in the last few hours, they're very sporadic. The heavy rain is actually further to the east away from there. Right now, it's about 18 degrees Celsius with those very light sprinkling of showers. Of course, the information we get comes from the airport. So this, of course, is the journey it's going to be taking over the next, day and a half, I suppose, really, Hala. I don't know about you, Hala, but it looked smaller to me than I expected it in that sort of parking lot, wherever it was, behind John Zarella. But I'm sure it's going to look something amazing when it does go travelling down these streets. Of course, this is one of the street views you can see here. So to see it coming down is going to be something fairly unusual. Got this big right-hand turn they've got to make later on, and then eventually, of course, it will come to its final stop, which is just about here. So the weather conditions certainly today, we've got those showers. It should actually be a little bit better on Saturday as that low pulls away from the area. We've got some delays right now at the airport, actually, in San Francisco in California. Ground delays that have actually gone up to around 60 minutes right now. This is the system causing the problems. It has eventually, or it will eventually, produce some fairly severe thunderstorms across, first of all, Texas, and then pushing up to the Midwest as we head into Saturday. You can see those thunderstorms really developing, moving fairly swiftly over the next 48 hours. But because of those thunderstorms, first of all, warnings Friday into Saturday across Texas, and then Saturday into Sunday across much of the Midwest. So we could have some fairly dangerous storms. Not particularly cool, though. 21 in Chicago on Saturday and 24 in the southeast in Atlanta. Then we head across to Europe. Now, a very unsettled weekend in place here. You can see on the satellite a lot of clouds being streaming in the last few hours, and in fact making its way across the Mediterranean as well. So everywhere cooling off, although it's northern Europe where the really cold air is in place. Very heavy rain across much of Scotland and northern England in the last few hours. It's been working its way across Western Europe. Germany, you're seeing some fairly heavy rain now as well as that front continues to sweep across the region. There's actually two areas really that we're going to see with the very heavy amounts of rain. First of all, across the Low Countries, northern France into Germany, and then again across more central regions of the Mediterranean. That's where again we've got a warning in place. Friday into Saturday, we could see some strong winds. Large hail is also possible embedded within those thunderstorms. To the north then, we've got the rain. We've also got some very blustery conditions. The one front goes through. Here comes the next area of low pressure. So really blustery, also feeling cooler. That cold air actually being funneled back across northern sections of the UK. So temperatures will actually be below average. More in the way of snow, fairly widespread through Scandinavia, northern western areas of Russia. Just 9 in Stockholm on Saturday and just 13 in Paris. So we should count ourselves lucky, Hala.
All right, thanks very much. The weather's been quite nice for us.
Are used to move at 28,000 kilometers per hour. Now it's going about 3. The retired spacecraft is on a voyage through Los Angeles to its final home at a local science center. Casey Wyan has been following the orbiter through the streets of LA.
Space Shuttle Endeavour behind me is now about a third of the way along its 12-mile journey from the Los Angeles International Airport to the California Science Center in downtown Los Angeles. The shuttle is stopped. What you can see happening now is the platform that has been transporting it is being reconfigured so it can cross one of Los Angeles's freeways. What is going to happen is this Toyota Tundra pickup truck is going to actually take over and tow the shuttle across this freeway overpass. Transportation officials have been very concerned that the heavier transport platform could cause this bridge to collapse. So Toyota is using this as an opportunity to both help out in the transfer effort and also film this as a television commercial. The shuttle will continue along the rest of its journey throughout the day. Saturday, there will be many festivities. Tens of thousands of people are expected to come out and watch the final leg of the journey. It'll reach the Science Center, according to, if everything goes according to plan, about 9 o'clock local time Saturday evening. Casey Wyand, CNN, Inglewood, California.
And we'll, of course, follow Endeavour. Very slow journey across L.A. for you throughout this day. I'm Natalie Allen. The best of the Situation Room is next here on CNN.
Alistair Leithhead has been watching its progress.
In a shopping mall in LA, someone's taken all the best parking spaces. What a place to leave a spaceship. It was the final stop on Endeavour's final mission, before beginning a careful crawl through the city's streets to the museum where it'll see out its days.
I think it's great. I mean, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for folks from all over, you know, California, LA, whatever. You know, it's a great experience.
It's like one of the most exciting things of my life. Seriously, I've always followed the space program, and, you know, it's just great. I think a lot of people in the crowd, too, are big space fans.
Well, it certainly isn't something you see driving through your neighborhood every day of the week. And very few people here ever thought they'd get this close to a space shuttle. It's been a year in the planning, and at some points along the route, it's going to be pretty close, with just 15 centimeters of clearance either side. They had to cut down 400 trees. The museum's promised to replant 1,000, and to lift up the power lines and pull down the road signs and traffic lights. It was quite a responsibility for the man with the remote to carefully guide the priceless cargo past admiring crowds on Endeavour's final 24-hour mission. After 299 days in space, hurtling around the Earth, it was just a little bit sad to see it trundling off to its final home. Alistair Leithhead, BBC News, Los Angeles.
You can find out more about the shuttle on the BBC website, bbc.com/news. Lots of analysis, lots of background on all the day's top stories.
Die letzte Dienstreise, sie läuft. Die US-Raumfähre Endeavour ist auf dem Weg ins Museum. Und diese letzte Etappe führt das Shuttle auf dem Landweg über die Straßen von Los Angeles ins California Space Center. Entlang der knapp 20 Kilometer langen Strecke mussten dafür aber rund 400 Bäume gefällt werden. Die Überführung dauert insgesamt 2 Tage. 100.000 Schaulustige werden in LA erwartet. Seit dem Jungfernflug im Mai 92 war das Shuttle insgesamt 299 Tage im All und legte bei seinen Missionen, die 25 Mal stattfanden, mehr als 185 Millionen Kilometer zurück.
A big set of wheels cruising the streets of Los Angeles these days, and some pretty extreme measures are being taken to ensure the Space Shuttle Endeavour has room to roam. And sparkling new details about a planet any woman would love. You're at the iDesk. Welcome back. There is something big heading down the boulevard. NASA's youngest space shuttle is taking a victory lap before retirement. The Space Shuttle Endeavour being towed slowly through the streets of Los Angeles to the museum where it will live out its years. This is a 2-day operation. The shuttle taking its time, stopping in parking lots along the way even for adoring fans. CNN's John Zarella is following Endeavour's last journey and joins us now from Los Angeles. John, you know, after the space race, this is more of a crawl, really. It's an astonishing story, trying to move something that was designed for the sky through the streets of a crowded city.
Yeah, in fact, the folks at the California Science Center, where the shuttle will make its final home, were telling me, you know, as soon as they got word 18 months ago that they had been awarded a shuttle, they began planning this, and it was an incredible undertaking to come up with this venture to drive it through the streets of Los Angeles. In fact, it is about halfway home right now, about 6 miles under its belt, about 6 miles to go today before reaching the Science Center. We are at the old Forum where the Los Angeles Lakers basketball team used to play. Parking lot here filled with hundreds and hundreds of people. They expect maybe 5,000 people here for the shuttle when it comes by, and it is close. And Jonathan, I have joining me Stephanie Stilson, who is the her title was Flow Director for Discovery, which was for 10 years, which means processing the space shuttle, getting it ready to fly. But since then, she's been processing and getting all of these shuttles ready for retirement. And we're so glad to have you, Stephanie. And thank you. What, you know, here you are, and this is it, driving. You probably never expect to ever see a shuttle going down the streets of any city.
No, and it does make me a little bit nervous because we're used to having a lot more control over the environment that these vehicles are in, but I have to keep telling myself it's no longer a flight vehicle, it's now an artifact, and what a great opportunity for the public to see it up close, and they're getting a very good view of it as it moves through. It's moving very slow, so I got to walk with it yesterday and just really enjoyed the cheering and the hellos the whole way. It was a great opportunity.
It has to make you feel really, really good to see the kind of public reaction, you know, because over the years, so many people, the space program, you know, this and that. But the people really tremendously do seem to love this vehicle.
Oh, absolutely. Everywhere I go, if I have a shuttle T-shirt on or something, last night at dinner, spent 20 minutes talking to folks about the space shuttle and how happy and excited they are to have it here. And we're bringing Endeavour home, so that's a great thing. You know, having been built in California, it's a good place for it to go. And the California Science Center has been wonderful. It makes me feel better knowing how excited they are to have it, how proud they are to have it, and they're going to take great care of her.
You know, and Jonathan, as Stephanie was saying, they've got some really close areas today where there's just going to be a couple of inches on either side of the vehicle with trees on either side because they were older trees. They didn't want to cut them down. You know, there'd been a little bit of a controversy over the fact that some 400 trees had to be cut down to make this a possibility. But, you know, at the end of the day, the Science Center is saying, look, we're going to replant 2 trees for every one that had to come down. Jonathan?
We're looking at live pictures. John Zarella talking to us, and I am just astonished by this story. You know, I once tried to drive a mobile home. I was hitting signs, I was hitting telephone poles, I was hitting cables. An amazing bit of incredibly slow navigation. John Zarella, live from Los Angeles. What a story. Thanks very much. And finally, in a galaxy far, far away, there's a planet that could become a girl's best friend. Here's why. It's made of diamond, literally. And get this, the planet is twice the size of Earth. But before you make any travel plans, you should know this glittering planet is about 40 light years away. That's 240 trillion miles. It's in the northern constellation Cancer, but it can be seen from Earth with the naked eye. It kind of twinkles, I bet.
Einen Planeten ausgemacht, der vermutlich zu einem Drittel aus Diamant besteht. Der Himmelskörper ist etwa doppelt so groß wie die Erde und gut 40 Lichtjahre entfernt, galaktisch gesehen also in unserer Nachbarschaft. Trotzdem liegen die Diamanten außer Reichweite. Eine Reise dorthin würde nach derzeitigem Stand der Technik Jahrhunderte dauern.
Endeavour, lumbering slowly through the streets of Los Angeles to its final resting place. All the details right here, right now, en route a little more rapidly to the iDesk. Space shuttle glides towards its final destination. We're following Endeavour's last incredible journey here at the iDesk. In a California museum. First, though, the last hurrah in the streets of Los Angeles, literally in the streets. It's all supposed to come to an end within hours. We'll take you live. Let's hope it gets there. Big set of wheels, very big crowd on hand to see it. What you're looking at is a retired spacecraft on what you might call its very last mission. This is the space shuttle Endeavour, slowly making its way through the streets of Los Angeles, and I believe we're looking at live pictures. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. No, it's not. This is videotape, but it is the Endeavour on its way to a museum where it will be put on display. Look at this thing. It is a hulking witness to 25 years in space flight, essentially riding on the back of a very slow-moving flatbed truck. An extraordinary sight, not just once in a lifetime, but one time ever. CNN's Casey Wine is there getting a closer view. You're right in front of the shuttle, are you? How's it going?
It's going really well, Jonathan, but I got to tell you, right now, the shuttle is approaching the one intersection, the one part of this 12-mile route from the Los Angeles International Airport to its final home at the California Science Museum, Science Center, that organizers and engineers have been very, very concerned about. The shuttle is about to make a hard left turn and go through a residential area where there will only be inches on either side of the shuttle's massive wings for it to clear trees, telephone poles, and other obstructions. There was one of the planners of this whole thing says this corner has been causing him to lose sleep. Once it is past this little stretch, they will breathe easier, and they know that the shuttle's going to make it to its
final home without any significant issues. Tens of thousands of people have been lining the streets of Los Angeles to watch this journey, all of them armed with cameras and cell phones. Very, very excited to see what is really a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And so far, it has gone very, very smoothly, Jonathan.
One small step for man, one very slow drive home for a spacecraft. Casey Wine, live in Los Angeles. Thanks very much. Looks like good weather in Los Angeles now, but there are storms working their way parts of the United States. Jenny Harrison is watching them. Amazing thing, but they've had the weather for it.
Say that again, John? What, they had nice weather?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been lovely, isn't it, today? It wasn't a good Friday morning. There were some showers, actually, but that is all cleared out of the way. But the system bringing those showers, very, very widespread they were across California. That system is working its way now. You can see across the Midwest, we could be seeing some pretty ferocious storms developing as we go through the next couple of days. There was, for a time, a tornado watch into western areas of Texas. You'll notice as well some sleet and snow across the Four Corners region. It's that time of year, of course. This is where we'll be seeing the severe storms developing as we go through the rest of Saturday into Sunday. But once this whole system clears eastwards properly, then we've got some very nice conditions, really. But as I say, it's the storms in the meantime. You can see them all working their way eastwards. And this is where the warnings are, Saturday into Sunday, and then later on Sunday into Monday. This, again, is where we have those warnings posted. Temperature-wise, very nice still across the southeast, 24, but cooling off a bit in Chicago, just 18 degrees Celsius. And then in Europe, a very mixed and unsettled picture with some rather heavy rain and thunderstorms across the central Mediterranean. They've been coming across the last few hours. The very heavy rain finally cleared away from the UK, so again some lightly scattered showers, but some very heavy rain working its way through the Low Countries and into Germany, just as we expected with the system. That is where indeed we'll continue to see some rather heavy amounts of rain as we go through the weekend, but the warnings across the central Med still in place as they are through the northern portions of northern France. But you'll notice we have some red-orange on the map, so that means the risk of these storms has actually been increased to moderate, so some concerns there. And very windy, just generally blustery conditions across much of northern, central and western Europe. So there comes the rain. Of course, there's snow in the mix as well across much of Scandinavia. The air is pretty cool up there, 8 Celsius in Stockholm on Sunday, so even cooler still, 11 in Glasgow, and the same in Paris, so really feeling like autumn. John.
Jenny Harrison at the Weather Center. Thanks very much. And before we go, a story you might want to keep your eye on. A man in the U.S. state of Florida was looking for interesting stuff on the beach when he found something that was looking right back at him. This is a softball size, obviously blue eyeball. And now scientists are looking into the mystery. Experts with the State Wildlife Agency are trying to figure out what species it came from. A spokeswoman says they suspect it was a large fish of some kind. We hope to find out next week. We'll keep our eyes on it. That does it for us here at the International Desk. I'm Jonathan Mann. Don't go away. Inside Africa is next. You're watching CNN.
Shuttle Endeavour is making progress, but it's still more than 6 hours away from its new home at the California Science Center. These are live pictures of its slow movement. The retired U.S. shuttle is being towed through the streets of Los Angeles. It began the 20-kilometer trip from LA's International Airport on Friday. Those are the headlines this hour. Live pictures from Los Angeles, where the Space Shuttle Endeavour is rolling through the streets on its way to retirement. The mayor of Los Angeles calls it a once-in-a-lifetime event. The U.S. Space Shuttle Endeavour lumbering through the city streets at just over 3 kilometers an hour, and thousands of spectators are lining up to watch. And that puts the retired shuttle on track to roll up to its new home in a little more than 5 hours. The Endeavour is to become a permanent museum piece at the California Science Center. John Zarella has covered the U.S. space program for CNN for a long time, so it's only fitting that John should be on hand for Endeavour's final mission. He's joining me now live from Los Angeles. So, John, a little bit delayed?
Yeah, a little bit. And, you know, it's funny. I was just telling the folks here, I said, I'm getting tired of saying it's coming, but it is. You know, it's an hour, over an hour behind schedule right now, probably another 45 minutes at least before it gets to where we are now. We are at a mall location, which was the second area where they were going to have a major celebration for the shuttle. They started out this morning down at the auditorium and the forum where the Los Angeles Lakers used to play. They had a big ceremony there, and then they started moving on. But they ran into some difficulties along the way Relitza, things that they anticipated, but perhaps took more time than they thought. There were trees that had to be trimmed back again. They ran into some really, really tight spots that they've had to navigate around. So it's taken them quite a bit longer than they anticipated that it would. And I have Stephanie Stilson here with me, and Stephanie's with NASA and really was instrumental behind getting all 3 of the shuttle vehicles ready for their retirements. And, you know, these were things anticipated. You knew those obstacles were out there. But it's thrown a little bit of a monkey wrench into things.
Yes, a little bit. And also we knew there would be a lot of excitement and people wanting to get close. And so we're hearing that also is that people are tending to press into the controlled area and the police force are having to back them out. And so they knew that would happen too. In fact, the local law enforcement had encouraged people to only come to these set locations. Well, obviously people want to see it as soon as they can, as close to their homes as they can. So they didn't really abide by those directions. So it's slowing us down, but the main thing is we get here safely.
Yeah, I know that's the biggest thing for you. You don't care how long it takes. You know, being someone who spent so many years of your life making sure they were right when they flew, you want to make sure it's right when it gets to the museum.
Absolutely. So I'm as anxious as anybody to get it to the California Science Center to its final home, but we want to take our time and do it right.
And when you think about it coming down these streets, you mentioned that has to be, you see the throngs of people that are gathered here. I mean, this has been an incredible event that I think probably, even as far as you're concerned, is far more than you would have expected.
Absolutely. I keep being reminded of a launch. I see all these people that are here all gathering together waiting for the countdown, and that's what it reminds me of. And so it just continues to show us how excited Los Angeles is, how excited the state of California is. There's people here from all over the country that have come to see this, and it makes us feel very good.
Stephanie, thanks so much. And you know, Relitza, when you talk about it, we think about it, when we see all these people gathered here, you know, over so many years, the space shuttle program was maligned as too expensive. There were the accidents that happened and, you know, then budget cutting. And, you know, I think when you see the numbers of people that have turned out to see this and witness this event, you know, it is a good reminder that many people, certainly, you know, here in the United States and everywhere around the world, are still absolutely enthralled with the idea of human beings flying into space. And, you know, one of the astronauts told me a long time ago that he said that, you know, once the space shuttles are retired, someday we're going to look back and say, wow, what an incredible flying machine, you know, this was, and one that we will probably never see again in our lifetime, certainly never see again flying. And so this has been an opportunity for people who might never, ever have gotten to see a space shuttle up close, to see one up close, and probably about another 45 minutes or so. Relitza?
All right. It's truly an incredible sight. I wish I was there with you, John. Thank you so much for bringing us this excitement, this incredible last journey into retirement. John Zarella, thank you. It used to take the U.S. Space Shuttle Endeavour 90 minutes to orbit the Earth, but making it through the streets of Los Angeles is not quite as precise. There was an unexpected slowdown earlier in the day, but the shuttle is back on track. Before the day is done, it is still expected to roll into its new home at the California Science Center. Is getting closer to its new home at the California Science Center. You're watching live pictures of its slow movement. The retired U.S. Space Shuttle is being towed through the streets of Los Angeles. It began the 20-kilometer trip from LA's International Airport on Friday.
In Tinseltown, where seeing stars is ho-hum, Endeavour made folks starry-eyed. It and it alone had everyone's attention. Cameras snapped. People looked on in awe as Endeavour came into view. This was the first designated viewing area outside the old Forum Arena, where the Los Angeles Lakers once played. Endeavour was way ahead of schedule at that point, but it wouldn't last. Outside an area mall, the second designated viewing area, some people stood and waited more than 8 hours for the shuttle to arrive, and when it did, it was well after dark. The most difficult part of the 12-mile journey to the California Science Center was more difficult than expected. Endeavour came within inches of trees. So many people lined the streets, pressing as close as they could get. So many delicate turns had to be made that going was slower than the predicted slow 2 miles an hour. But oh, was it worth the wait. This was history. The actor who came with his daughter.
I think it's a pretty amazing event. That's why I'm here with my daughter, to make sure that she sees it and is a part of it.
The young rocket scientist, she is literally, who came down from San Francisco.
Well, it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing to see a space shuttle going down the streets, especially the streets of LA, so I had to see it.
The woman who runs a preschool and already has her kids booked for a shuttle museum visit.
I'm so excited that the shuttle is here in Los Angeles. I own a preschool, Juniversity in Compton, California, and I wanted to be able to take some of this event back to the children. We have an appointment at Exposition Park on November the 16th to take the entire school.
If nothing else, Endeavour rolling down the LA streets seemed to strike a patriotic chord, a sense of pride. People waved American flags, held children on their shoulders. As it went by, this flying machine like none ever built before left people with one simple word: wow. John Zarrella, CNN, Los Angeles.
So great to see the excitement over that. Severe weather in parts of the U.S., but pleasant for the Endeavour and that historic skydiving attempt we've been talking about. Tom Stater is joining us, and it's really nice to see the excitement that a shuttle moving through the streets of La La Land generates. Love that.
That's right, yeah, hundreds of thousands. Of course, temperature's 19 degrees. It couldn't be better, Natalie, really, for that event. Other events, too, as we take a look at the U.S. picture, the storm system in the middle of the U.S. moved through Southern California, so the timing was good for the Endeavour. That storm system has really been plaguing the middle of the heartland of the U.S. with severe weather in the form of damaging winds, a lot of reports of hail, even a few tornadoes, and it's still firing up. But what we're watching now is just hours away. The Austrian Felix Baumgartner in Roswell, New Mexico, is going to try a second attempt to fill this balloon, 5-story high balloon, with helium. It's going to take him 2.5 to 3 hours to reach the stratosphere, and only about 15 minutes to fall, breaking the sound barrier with supersonic sound. So, of course, we'll be keeping an eye on that for you. That's 6 a.m. local time. It's going to take 2.5 hours to get up. Rough weather in the middle of the country. You can see the tornado watch boxes that are making their way. This is a severe weather watch box, a heavy rainfall in the middle of the country. We're still watching this storm system that'll slowly slide, bringing heavy rain to areas of the Ohio Valley and into the Great Lakes. But conditions improved. They're just concerned, the crew for the Red Bull Stratus mission. You get a couple hundred meters off the surface. Remember, last Tuesday, the winds kind of blew the balloon down. The balloon is so thin it cannot touch the ground, so they have a backup. Let's hope they get off the ground. We'll keep our fingers crossed. In Europe, heavy amounts of rain. Look, just north of the Netherlands, this area of low pressure spreading heavy amounts of rain through parts of France. We had a trouble spot down to the south where we had heavy amounts of rainfall. In fact, the threat for severe weather slides into Greece now and will continue across the south, but rainfall totals 91 to even 134 in Albania. But I want to take you to the north where we've had serious flood problems. In fact, let me show you some video that came out of northeast Scotland. We talked about this on Friday and into Saturday. A month's worth of rainfall in a short amount of time, really creating some structural integrity problems on the roadways and a number of structures. And we'll continue to see them get a threat with light rainfall, Natalie, in the next couple of days, as finally we're watching on the weather maps here a series of low-pressure systems move through the area. But hopefully they'll get a break in the days ahead.
Oh, so thanks so much, Tom. See you soon. And thank you for watching World Report. I'm Natalie Allen. I'll be right back with our top stories. Is running behind schedule as it journeys to its final destination, a science museum. Officials blame trees, power lines, and thousands of spectators in Los Angeles for the delay in its 19-kilometer trek through the streets. It'll get there eventually.
Ihr Element war die Luft, beziehungsweise der luftleere Raum im All. Auf jeden Fall aber ganz sicher nicht der Boden. Und so hatte es was von einem gestrandeten Wal, als heute die ausgemusterte US-Weltraumfähre Endeavour über die Straßen von Los Angeles ihre letzte Reise antrat. Statt wie früher mit mehrfacher Schallgeschwindigkeit unterwegs, waren es diesmal gerade mal 3 km/h, um im Schneckentempo vom Flughafen in LA zu ihrem endgültigen Bestimmungsort zu kriechen, dem 20 Kilometer entfernten California Science Center Museum. In gut 1,5 Stunden dürfte sie dort endlich ankommen und Bäume mussten für diese Aktion gefällt werden, Stromtrassen gekappt. Selbst für das spektakelverwöhnte Los Angeles eine außergewöhnliche Show, berichtet Stefan Niemann.
Aus dem All in die Stadt der Stars und Sternchen, Los Angeles. Abschied von einer Legende. Mit der letzten Reise der Endeavour endet eine Epoche amerikanischer Raumfahrt.
It makes me patriotic.
Es macht mich patriotisch und stolz auf das, was wir Amerikaner als Nation erreicht haben.
Of what we've achieved as a nation.
Große Gefühle am Straßenrand. Hollywood-Stars begegnen sich hier andauernd. Aber ein echtes Raumschiff zum Greifen nah, das gab es noch nie.
I'm giving me a heart attack.
Ich kriege einen Herzinfarkt. Ich bin so nah dran. Haben Sie das gesehen? Sie erkennen alle kleinen Details. Es war im Himmel und jetzt ist es hier bei mir. Huckepack nach Hollywood. Die stolze Endeavour vor 3 Wochen auf dem Rücken einer Boeing 747. Nach der Landung der kritischste Teil der Reise. Mitten durch die Megacity Los Angeles, vom Flughafen zum California Science Center. Der Shuttle landet im Raumfahrtmuseum. Vorher 20 Kilometer echte Millimeterarbeit, die lange vorbereitet wurde. Stromleitungen mussten angehoben, 100 Ampeln abgebaut werden. Fast 400 Bäume standen im Weg. Denn der kosmische Koloss hat eine Spannweite von 26 Metern und ein rund 20 Meter hohes Heck. Immer wieder wird es eng. Ferngesteuert wie ein Spielzeugmodell nähert sich die Endeavour ihrem letzten Ziel. Schritttempo statt Schallgeschwindigkeit. Das ist das Ende einer Ära, aber ich hoffe, dass sie bald erneut zum Mond oder endlich zum Mars fliegen. Heute sind sie alle Astronauten in Amerika. Die stolze Raumfahrtnation feiert den letzten Shuttle. Nach 200 Millionen Kilometern und 299 Tagen im All wird das Raumschiff zur Attraktion im Science Center. Die Endeavour seit heute der größte Star in Los Angeles.
Mit etwas mehr Tempo war gestern die deutsche Fußballnationalmannschaft unterwegs. Aber so richtig Vollgas musste die DFB 11 auch nicht geben in der WM-Qualifikation gegen Irland, oder, Katja Wunderlich?
Das war schon ganz schön beeindruckend, was die deutsche Nationalmannschaft gestern in Dublin beim 6:1 gegen die Iren gezeigt hat. Spaßfußball vom Feinsten gegen ein völlig überfordertes Team von Trainer Trapattoni. 3 Siege, 11:2 Tore. Die deutsche Mannschaft hält Kurs auf die direkte WM-Teilnahme 2014 in Brasilien. Jetzt muss das DFB-Team die wiedergefundene Spielfreude am Dienstag in Berlin gegen Schweden bestätigen. Das Team Red Bull hat beim Qualifying für den großen Preis von Südkorea erneut seine Überlegenheit bewiesen. Formel-1-Weltmeister Sebastian Vettel landete zwar nur auf Platz 2, aber die Pole Position konnte sich sein Teamkollege Mark Webber aus Australien sichern. Startschuss für das Rennen ist morgen früh um 8 Uhr. Er war einer der profiliertesten und bekanntesten Sportjournalisten in Deutschland, Harry Valerien. Gestern Abend ist der frühere Fernsehmoderator und Reporter im Alter von 88 Jahren gestorben.
Ich bin ganz konsterniert, kann ich fast sagen, welche Kamera ist es. Also ich kann es immer noch nicht fassen. Ich muss ja noch irgendetwas ansagen.
Harry Valerien, eine Reporterlegende, Mitbegründer und 25 Jahre Moderator des aktuellen Sportstudios. Ein Münchner mit Charme und Herz, der die Sportberichterstattung in Deutschland prägte. Hartnäckig konnte er sein, er hakte nach, jedoch nie auf Kosten anderer.
Also aus meiner Sicht war er ein überragender Reporter und wunderbarer Moderator, der immer den Sport und die Sportler, die er interviewt hat, in den Vordergrund gestellt hat und sich nicht selber produziert hat und trotzdem in dieser Landschaft dann ein Star wurde.
Vor allem dem Skisport galt seine Leidenschaft. Journalistisch begleitete er Skilegenden bei ihren großen Erfolgen.
Er war ja immer mit einem Herzblut bei den Sportlern. Also das war eine ganz andere Verbindung, wie es eigentlich jetzt ist zwischen Journalist und Sportler. Das war fast schon so väterliche oder ja, so Ratgeber.
Valerien erhielt zahlreiche Preise, zuletzt 2004 den Bayerischen Ehrenfernsehpreis, obwohl oder gerade weil er nie ZDF-Sportchef werden wollte. Gestern Abend erlag er einem Herzversagen.
Er ist der erste frei gewählte Präsident Ägyptens. Aber gut 100 Tage ist Mohamed Morsi nun im Amt und die Hoffnung des arabischen Frühlings auf eine bessere Zeit hat sich für viele spätestens gestern im Steinhagel und Rauch über Kairos Tahrirplatz aufgelöst in Ägypten. Ausgerechnet an dem Platz also, der zum Symbol des Sturzes des alten Mubarak-Regimes wurde, lieferten sich Anhänger und Gegner des neuen Staatschefs eine blutige Straßenschlacht. Ausdruck der Zerrissenheit des Landes. Morsis Kritiker fürchten, dass der ehemalige Muslimbruder Ägypten schleichend doch zum Gottesstaat nach islamischen Gesetzen machen will. Vor allem viele Frauen macht der neue Verfassungsentwurf große Sorgen. Aus Kairo, Thomas Stephan.
Nada Mohammed mit einem Freund auf dem Tahrirplatz, über den wieder der Verkehr rollt, als wäre nichts gewesen. Die junge Ägypterin wollte die Veränderung, hoffte auf ein Ende der Gewalt nach dem Sturz Mubaraks. Nun hat sie Zweifel, weil die islamistischen Muslimbrüder an der Macht sind. Für mich ist der Islam eine Religion und hat nichts mit Politik zu tun. Aber nun gibt es eine politische Gruppierung, die den Islam als Schutzmantel nimmt für ihre eigenen politischen Zwecke. Der Tahrirplatz gestern, islamistische Muslimbrüder stürmen eine Bühne, zerlegen sie regelrecht. Die Gewalttäter verhindern, dass Liberale und Jugendgruppen auf dieser Bühne gegen den neuen ägyptischen Präsidenten Morsi sprechen. Faustschläge und Steinwürfe statt Austausch von Argumenten, viele Verletzte. Nieder mit dem Regime des Muslimbruderführers fordern sie, und besonders Frauen befürchten, dass die Islamisten zum Beispiel die neue Verfassung nach ihrem Weltbild entwerfen, also Frauenrechte einschränken. Die Verfassung muss das Recht für jeden sichern. Christen und Muslime, Männer und Frauen, jeder muss sich in ihr wiederfinden. Alle müssen gleich sein, es darf keine Privilegien geben für niemanden. Präsident Morsi wird vorgeworfen, mit seinen Muslimbrüdern und den Salafisten die Verfassungskommission zu dominieren. Das hat Folgen. So sollen Frauen und Männer gleichberechtigt sein, aber nur, wenn dies nicht den Grundsätzen der Scharia widerspricht. Manal Tibi war Mitglied der Verfassungskommission. Die Frauenrechtlerin hat das Gremium aus Protest verlassen. Die Verfassung wird aus Ägypten einen religiösen Staat machen. Ein Staat nicht für jedermann, ein Staat, der die Rechte nicht jedem in gleichen Teilen zuspricht, sondern der die Menschen klassifiziert in Bürger erster, zweiter und dritter Klasse. Während der Revolution waren Frauen immer wieder auf die Straße gegangen, um für ihre Rechte einzutreten. Es gab brutale Übergriffe des Militärs gegen sie. Viele von ihnen fragen sich nun, unter ihnen auch Nada Mohammed, warum haben wir die Revolution gemacht, wenn wir nun womöglich wieder in unseren Rechten eingeschränkt werden.
Von Außenminister Westerwelle stammt der Satz, es ist das Ziel der Diplomatie, Kriege zu verhindern. So gesehen hat in Syrien seit 1,5 Jahren jegliche Diplomatie versagt. Nun ist sie aber vermehrt gefragt, diese Diplomatie, um zu verhindern, dass sich der dortige Bürgerkrieg zu einem internationalen Konflikt ausweitet. Seit Wochen kommt es immer wieder zu Zwischenfällen an der syrisch-türkischen Grenze. Und diese Grenze ist nicht irgendeine, es ist auch eine NATO-Grenze. Und somit eine, die uns ganz konkret betreffen könnte. Was, wenn die Türkei das Bündnis um Hilfe bittet? Wohl auch deshalb reiste Westerwelle heute nach Istanbul, um nochmal an das Ziel der Diplomatie zu erinnern. Martin Weiß.
Als erstes traf Guido Westerwelle den Chef des syrischen Nationalrats, Basit Saida. Der Westen unterstützt die Opposition und Russland das Assad-Regime. Mit dem türkischen Außenminister ging es auch um den syrischen Airbus, den die türkische Luftwaffe am Mittwochabend zur Landung gezwungen hatte, weil der Verdacht auf Waffen an Bord bestand. Doch dazu gab es auch heute keine konkreten Aussagen. Nach Medienberichten solle es sich um Radarbauteile handeln. Offizielle Reaktionen auf den syrischen Vorschlag, einen gemeinsamen Rat einzurichten, gab es von Seiten der Türkei nicht. Der türkische Außenminister machte noch einmal klar, dass sich sein Land das Recht herausnehme, bei einer Bedrohung militärisch zu reagieren. Falls in Zukunft ein ähnlicher Grenzverstoß passieren sollte oder die Türkei das Gefühl hat, ihre nationale Sicherheit sei in Gefahr, werden wir erneut zurückschlagen. Westerwelle stärkte der Türkei den Rücken und sicherte Solidarität zu, sowohl bei der Flüchtlingsproblematik als auch beim Verhalten, was den syrischen Airbus betrifft. Von einem Bündnisfall für die NATO wolle er noch nicht sprechen, obwohl bereits mehrfach Granaten auf dem Boden des NATO-Partners Türkei gelandet waren.
Ich glaube, dass die Lage sehr ernst ist und dass wir eine Eskalation der Gewalt verhindern müssen. Das geht nur, indem wir einerseits der Türkei sagen, dass sie nicht alleine steht, wenn ihre Staatsbürger umgebracht werden durch Beschuss aus Syrien.
Auch der Sondergesandte der Vereinten Nationen, Lakhdar Brahimi, versuchte heute auf den türkischen Außenminister beschwichtigend zu wirken. Trotz der militärischen Grenzkonflikte solle eine diplomatische Lösung gefunden werden. Westerwelle sprach dann noch mit dem Generalsekretär der Arabischen Liga, Nabil el-Arabi. Die Liga solle auf ihr Mitgliedsland Syrien einwirken, zu einer friedlichen Lösung zu kommen. Und der wichtigste deutsche Diplomat könnte dabei eine entscheidende Mittlerrolle spielen. Denn morgen trifft sich Guido Westerwelle mit dem russischen Außenminister. Und Russland hat momentan die Schlüsselrolle im Syrien-Konflikt.
Und soeben erreichen uns Meldungen, dass Syrien ab Mitternacht zivilen türkischen Flugzeugen die Benutzung des syrischen Luftraums untersagt. Dies gab nach Angaben der staatlichen syrischen Nachrichtenagentur Sana das Außenministerium bekannt. Das Säbelrasseln geht also weiter.